Hey everybody, this is Noe with Walk with Yah, your favorite sanctification minister. Okay, maybe not your favorite, but at least the one that you're watching right now. So welcome back, or welcome here if you've been here before, or if this is your first time visiting. Walk with Yah is a ministry that focuses on helping people get rid of their oppression, by ministering to them, getting rid of, demons, unclean spirits, but also teaches on other aspects of, the positive side of, living the Bible and stuff like that. Because it's not just about focusing on the bad, believe it or not. And so, shalom, Madeline. Glad that you are here. Yay! Madeline's here, buddy. We can get started. And so, always good to have you here. And so, so it's some people have this idea that deliverance, is just about the bad stuff, and and sometimes they don't want to deal with that. But it's not just that. Do you have to sometimes focus on the bad? Well, yes, of course, because sometimes the enemy's that's what allows the enemy in to take your blessings from you, to oppress you. So yeah, sometimes that has to be dealt with. There's a lot of different ways that can be dealt with. Sometimes people don't like talking to the demons and stuff like that, unclean spirits. I don't have a problem with it, but everyone's different. And so, but there's various ways to get around that. And so anyways, but that's what Walk with Yah does, is teach, try to help remove spiritual oppression from people, teaches on aspects of the spirit realm, spiritual warfare, even the positive aspects, and just try to teach people how to live the Bible, the Torah, because it's all there for your benefit, and that's how Yah made his creation. And if you can create your own universe, maybe you can come up with your own rules, but those are the rules that he made, and those are the ones that we got to live by. Okay, but glad again that you are here. Now, in the last live stream, I talked a little bit about the multiverse. Again, I don't really care. A lot of people focus on the science of that, quantum physics and, CERN and all the, dark matter and all that type of stuff. And that's cool and stuff, but I don't think we necessarily have to know all the formulas and all that stuff in order to get the benefit of it. Without even, it's like you don't have to know exactly how gravity works in order to get the benefit of gravity. And so, in the last live stream, I was talking mostly from the perspective of what does the Bible have to say about multiverse, about different kingdoms and realms and universes, that type of stuff. While giving some examples. Now, for those people that have a very traditional view of the Bible, that was probably a hard listen to, and you may not be able to connect the dots. That doesn't mean it wasn't true. It just means it was different, which doesn't make it wrong. Again, I tell people a lot of times that we're going to be learning about his creation, his kingdom for eternity. So try not to get too focused on what we think we know about the Bible and get stuck in the past and traditions and stuff like that. So in this live stream, Walk with Yah is going to take a different approach. As I could really go in 100 different directions as we continue to talk about the multiverse, because whether you know it or not, it does have an impact on your current life. Because there are parts of you, yes, you, that are living elsewhere in God's creation, that you are still connected to, so they can influence you unbeknownst to many of you. And that's just the reality. I know a lot of people don't have to necessarily deal with that reality, at least not yet. But in almost all my clients, this is where we end up going, And so what happens in the spiritual realm, in the spiritual heavens, affects what goes on in this first earthly heaven and vice versa. Because when you start doing this type of work, you'll find out how everything is really connected to one another. And the spirit realm affects every part of our existence, from atoms, and gluons and all that type of stuff, like quantum physics stuff, to the constellations and beyond. Again, everything is connected, which is why sometimes it's kind of hard to talk about these topics and not try to address everything at once. But I do the best I can. I also want to say that I believe that Yah, God, has directed me to get more into what the Bible actually says and not what people want it to say by ignoring the verses they don't like or by having certain traditional beliefs taught to them that don't really make any sense. If you look, at the context, if you look at the Bible, what it says, as a whole, not just looking at the quote unquote New Testament. Again, I'm not a Bible scholar, which is good in some cases, but I think it's pretty easy to prove what I'm telling you here by allowing the Bible to speak for itself without man's explanations, which has been tainted by the enemy. Because much spiritual interpretation, won't be needed when I start to explain things, going forward, because there's another viewpoint which many people are missing. And so, anyways, I just wanted to say that, but just kind of let you know what's coming. And I know that may bore some people, and I may lose some of you, but okay. Because spirit and truth go hand in hand. I know a lot of people like the fireworks, the pizzazz of the spiritual realm, but it's based in truth. So there's going to be some live streams coming where we're going to talk about the Torah. As I see it now, Walk with Yah will be teaching partly on the Torah and partly on spiritual warfare and growth. So, again, just a heads up. But for this live stream, hey, Joe. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you love what I'm teaching. Good. So I noticed that I look at my the count of subscribers and stuff like that. Not that I watch it too closely, but when I start talking about Torah stuff, I lose people, and it's like, okay, alrighty, see ya. And so, but again, spirit and truth go hand in hand. You really shouldn't pick and choose what you want to get from the Bible. Let's just focus on prosperity and just do that. No. And so, but thank you for that. I really appreciate that feedback. I always enjoy getting feedback. So, as I was stating, for this live stream, I'm going to put up a picture that I put together that has various, heavenscape items. I didn't call it landscape because we're not talking about land. We're talking about heaven. The different heavens, if you will. I will let you ask about a particular part of the picture, or what do you think it means? What does it mean to you? Or see if you have any questions. And then we're just going to see where that goes. And if I don't get any questions, well, then I'll just talk randomly about what is there, what I have experienced. Not that I know everything. And, obviously this isn't going to cover every spiritual topic under the sun because it can't. Because the spirit realm is too vast for me to cover, or even for the Bible to cover in every detail. I told a sometimes I'll tell people that the Bible doesn't tell us everything, and some of them have a hard time with that. But I'm just like, no, there's a lot of mysteries. There's a lot of things. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it kind of gives us the basics. You might have heard the acronym BIBLE, Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. And so there's just a lot to this stuff. And in Proverbs and elsewhere, it tells us to get wisdom. That is the principal thing. And so I'm trying to go deep and share with you what I learned, because I don't like just to... I like to put into practice what I learn, and that's what I like about sanctification or deliverance, is because it's kind of like a laboratory. You actually get to test this stuff out and see. You're like, oh, wow, like that verse had more impact than I thought. And so I typically like to play with things first before I share with y'all. The Bible gives us principles and a foundation for us to grow from. And in this world, growing older is mandatory, but maturity and wisdom is optional. No, I didn't get that on a fortune cookie, but it sounds like something I probably would have. I'm going to try to sum up spiritual warfare in this way before we move on. We're about to move on. Spiritual warfare, if you care to go this deep, if some of you are trying to get that inner healing, you might find that you have to go to this deep. There's different levels of sanctification, deliverance stuff. Sometimes you can do the surface and you may get some fireworks and, people might be like, okay, great, that's, I'm done. But there's generally more that needs to be done. I'm not trying to get people to necessarily hyper focus on that. Maybe some people believe that you just need to let Yeshua show you when those things, when you need to deal with things. Sure, I can see the logic in that. But for me, because I was trying to learn, I was actively trying to get rid of the generational curses, find those heart parts of me. And I still do, because I want to be whole. And so you take whatever approach works for you. But anyways, spiritual warfare, if you care to go this deep, and sometimes you may have to, is basically like The Matrix meets Alice in Wonderland, meets the Marvel Universe, meets Star Wars, meets Rings of the Lord of the Rings, with a twist of the Twilight Zone. And so it is a very different world, and I understand that people, they can't see that, but I feel that I do see more people awakening and starting to accept this. And again, just like a long time ago, people didn't think you could have demons. Christians couldn't have demons. Obviously, that's not many people believe that anymore, and maybe that'll be the case with this level of depth and understanding. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pull up this picture that I drew. And so, yes, there's that one, Multiverse. Little different, universes, realms there. Okay, but let's go. Let's move forward here. Okay, so here, I put a picture together, and I'll zoom in on some of these things that you can't read here, of these different aspects of the spirit realm. And so, we see different planets, we see portals, we see Earth, we see our house, we see, you see those circles around us, the PSTEGRM. What that represents is our human spirit. And so P is for profit, and just like in the colors of the rainbow, red many times, well, red represents profit. You know, sometimes I can be like, red, can you come up? And profit be like, yep, I'm here. Orange, servant. Yellow, teacher. Exhorter, green. Giver, blue. Ruler, indigo. Mercy, violet. I was actually at a church, I don't know, a little over 2 months ago, and they were having, you know, at this one table, if you wanted to come, you could get prophetic words. And so I was giving out prophetic words that night. And so I was, as I tend to do, I play around with stuff and experiment and just have fun, I guess. And I got these squares and I put the different colors on them. I didn't tell people what they were. So when they came up for a prophetic word, I was like, I just want you to pick out a color. And they did. And every word, prophetic word I gave out that night, I was like, okay, so you picked, you know, red. So I would listen. I believe the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, would tell me something about that person. And, you know, I was gave out a lot of good words that night. Everything was hitting that particular night. And I think, and I don't know this for sure, but I don't think it was necessarily the soul of the person that was picking out the color. I think it was their human spirit that came up and be like, oh, in particular, their primary human spirit portion, because of the 7, there's typically one that's going to be the primary, the one that's going to be the most you, if you will, you know, its characteristics. And so, anyways, I was just having fun with that particular night. But that's what these colors represent. It's our human spirit, that part of us that's that lives in the spirit realm, that can traverse all the, you know, different places in the spirits, you know, the first, second, third heavens. And it's not our soul, it's not our body, it's a different part of us, but it's still us. And so I've been incorporating that more into when I minister to clients, just because it's great to get their feedback, because they know a lot of things that our soul or we may not know. And so, plus I believe that really this, our life is really about growing our spirit. And as we follow Yah's word, it actually grows our spirit. And so to me, that's, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'll just say that I think this life's really about growing our spirit. So, okay. So anyways, so that's, you know, some things we got going on in this picture. You know, we got a little constellation down there on the left going on. Okay. So if there's anything that sparks a question in you or a statement, an experience, or something, please feel free to jot it down. Otherwise, I'm just going to, again, ramble on. Okay, so I want to go to the next slide. Well, it's just a part of this slide, actually. So again, we have those parts of our spirit. Now, and you can see the little house frame around us, because again, we are a house, a temple. We embody different entities within us. There's different rooms and stuff like that. And so, you know, there can be, you know, witches and warlocks hiding in your feet. They're going to have demons hiding behind your heart. You can have, you know, different parts of your heart parts that are, you know, more in your frontal cortex at the top of your brain, in the front of your brain. Those will have more control over you than some of the other smaller parts of you that play a minor part in your brain that may exist in the back of your brain. And so, because even with our heart parts, there's a hierarchy of authority, of you know, influence that they have in us. So, but yes, we have a house many rooms in our house. And so our heart is actually a different spiritual component of us. It actually, through science, biology and all that type of stuff, scientists have discovered that our heart has neurons, kind of like brain cells in it. And our heart, while is not as complex in terms of input-outputs as the brain, our heart manages our will. So our heart can tell our brain how to think, how to interpret the data. So for example, you read the news or get some, fact or information on Monday and you feel all happy and joyous and giddy. That information that you receive, it's going to affect you differently than if on Friday you received that information and you were down and out, depressed, lonely, and stuff like that. Same information, but your heart might be like, oh, well, this is what that means then. And so our heart tells our brain kind of how to believe. It kind of filters it. Now, there are different parts of our heart. Some people call them, different words and stuff like that. There's no real, consensus in this stuff. So, you may find someone that tells you differently than I am, and okay, that's fine. But typically, there is an emotion part of our heart, and that part will manage, our emotions, basically. And so I've run into clients where a part of their heart was almost acting like a protector or a guardian over different heart parts of the person. Those parts that were emotional, that where their emotions went up and down. Sometimes our heart can be very emotional. And then, obviously, we have the other part of the heart. In my drawing, there is no really... just because I put one on the right and one on the left, there's no really meaning there that I'm trying to show you, with the guardian there. Sure, the guardian may be in the middle, but in terms of left and right, in terms of the heart, this conversation I'm telling you now, it doesn't really matter. So the function part of our heart is obviously that part of us that, is like, hey, I got to get stuff done. I need to put the emotions aside. It's kind of the logic side, almost like, if you will, the left part of our brain. Actually, yes, I didn't mean to put that there. The emotion is actually more of our right side of our brain, if it lines up with the brain that way. But the function part of our heart manages our desires to get things done so much without the emotions. And so sometimes people's part of their heart will be in denial and can turn off the emotions to kind of get stuff done. They're like, okay, that stuff kind of slows me down and it kind of puts me in a tizzy, so therefore I don't really want to deal with it. And so I can sometimes call up people's heart, and sometimes it'll speak. Yeah, really. I'll get to more of that in a moment. And then we have the guardian part of the heart, which is basically trying to balance the two. And sometimes the guardian, as guardians do, may not let you get to the emotion part of the heart or the function part of the heart, because it's kind of like a protector. It's trying to protect the person. And it might be like, nope, you're not getting to them because you're going to hurt them. And as interesting as it may sound, the even if a person believes in Yeshua, Jesus, and, hey, maybe they've been, known about him since a kid, sometimes the part of their heart may not know Yeshua, Jesus, as odd as that sounds. And so that, which is kind of odd to me, but yes, anyways. So there's these different functions of the heart that kind of help manage a person. And so a lot of times, I was just making a short today on this. You might see it the next week or two, actually. It was talking about, this short I was talking about was about making vows. And, in the Bible it says, hey, why do you say this in your heart? Or out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Again, our heart can talk. It has sentience. It has an awareness. And so our heart will sometimes make vows, even if we don't speak them. I will never marry again. I will always be lonely. I can never trust this person. I will never forgive that person. And so, whether we say those out loud or via just our heart internally, our heart can make vows. And when our heart does that, or when we say those things, it causes a lot of problems. Because now we've tied Yah's hands. I don't have the verses on me right now, but in that short that'll be coming out, I list the verses at the bottom of that little video about making vows in your heart, that type of stuff. And so sometimes when I'm dealing with the soul fragments, I had one here this past week where, the idea is when you're ministering is you want to get these soul fragments to Jesus for him to take them and minister them and heal them and all that happy stuff, so a person can be more whole, not as fragmented, not as double-minded. And with this particular one, getting my stories mixed up, but this particular, we ran into a bunch of soul fragments, and most of them could go, but there's a few that couldn't, and it turns out they made a vow. It took us a few minutes to figure that out. Like, this stuff doesn't sometimes come easily. Like, you got to figure out, Yeshua's like, no, he can't come to be with me. We were like, okay, like, what's up with that? And I don't know if it was this situation or not, but there were some soul fragments that were able to go to Yeshua, and there were some others that were not. And I was trying to get the ones that were able to go to Yeshua to ask him, like, what's the deal? Why are these ones being held back? And after a few minutes, we did get an answer. And so, again, I try to sometimes use those that are in the spirit realm to get answers to the questions that I'm seeking, because I'm not getting them myself. So because they're on that side of the veil. And so a lot of times they see things that, know things that we don't. And so, but you got to be careful how you do that. Anyways, but the heart can make vows. And when we do that, we tie Yah's hands. Because he's like, what you said, you will do. So if you're like, I will be with you forever. You're in a romantic relationship, you're young, puppy love type of stuff. I will love you forever. 20 years later, you get a divorce. Then all of a sudden, you can't break that soul tie so easily because you made a vow. And then, so that's the first part of that. You tie Yah's hands. The second part of that is, well, now you done gave the enemy something to focus on. He's like, oh, well, let's get this person to tempt them to break that vow. That way they'll be in more trouble with Yah. They'll be in more sin. And so when you make vows, that gives the enemy something to focus on to make you mess up. So, but again, the whole part of that is about making vows and our heart actually having a voice, a sentience, and that our heart can speak. And so, and sometimes we can, tell our heart, hey, you will no longer believe, I cannot trust anybody, but have them replace it with the truth. But the Bible says here, sure, people are infallible, but I can trust Yeshua to take care of me, or whatever Bible verse that's appropriate. And so you can tell your heart how to believe. And so, anyways, just a little tidbit there. Okay, so let's see. Let me go here for a second. Nope, don't want to go there. All right, so if you notice in the around the pelvis area, I have like a little kingdom there. And so what that's representing is in Luke 17, I believe, the Bible says that the kingdom is within us. And so, yes, Yah's kingdom is within us. What the Bible does not say is that it's the only kingdom within us, as there can be many demonic kingdoms within us. There are going to be many strongmen that have their own kingdoms that are within us. So just because you boot out one that came from grandpa, on dad's side, you got rid of that strongman with his kingdom and all that's in it, doesn't mean there's not another kingdom there that needs to be dealt with that came from mom's side or whatever, from, your spouse's side or whatever. And so we have different kingdoms in us that come from different places, as well as having our own kingdom. And so in kingdoms, you have, you have rivers and mountains and clouds and buildings and animals and all this type of stuff. And so when we look down, at ourselves physically, we're like, oh, look, that's where my liver should be, and my intestine, and my heart, and all this stuff. Physically, yes. Spiritually, you would be blown away if you knew how much was in your inner world. Because again, we're not talking, the spirit realm is not limited by physicality. So there can be a lot there in a small space. And so it's kind of like a dream world, basically. And so, we have our own kingdoms, our own kingdom. And so the spirit, our human spirit, prophet, servant, teacher, exhorter, giver, ruler, mercy, when you get to know them, they can search out your inner world, because there's a lot of lands, a lot of, the river of life. There's a lot of areas that need to be explored, and how the darkness and the unclean spirits and demons, how we see them in the first earthly heaven, physical heaven, it will look differently than it does in the spirit realm. And so, but we're getting attacked on all three levels, spirit, soul, body, from the enemy. And so, with our human spirit, they all have different characteristics, different specialties, different things that they're good at, and we need them all. They all differ in immaturity levels. You can be a very strong in your gift of teaching, but your mercy, for example, might be very immature, to where it's just focused on comfort. or something like that. And so there's a lot. The whole redemptive gifts, there is a lot there. And so I find it valuable time to learn about the redemptive gifts. It's very encompassing. For me, it's a game changer. But yes, our human spirit can, explore our inner world, but also, again, traverse other realms and dimensions and stuff like that. Again, these are other parts of you. You may not think that it affects you in your daily life. You might be surprised. And so just because, a person may be spiritually dull, for example, maybe their human spirit isn't as active. Maybe it's not as vibrant, alive as it should be, or maybe it is. I don't know. But they're doing a lot of different things, and they don't sleep. Even while you're sleeping, your human spirit's doing something. They exist somewhere, even though you're not thinking about them, just like soul fragments. Just because you don't think about them doesn't mean they're not doing anything. I remember this one time, had a fellow pastor of mine that, does this. He's been doing this longer than I have been. And he told me, he was like, one time the soul fragments, they thought the client, the one that he was ministering to, was the soul fragment. And they were the primary identity. And I'm like, well, kind of makes sense. Sure, why not? Okay, anyways, I want to move on. Let's go here. So the focus here is being on the heart. If you have followed me, you know that I listen to a lot of different stuff. But I do listen to a lot of Arthur Burke of the Sapphire Leadership Group, and I just like his approach, technique, insight, revelation, all that kind of stuff. The way he puts things, it's easy for me to understand. Anyways, a number of years ago, I don't know, 5 plus minus years ago, he was actually doing experiments. And so, because our body, we're metaphysical beings. So we have a physicality, yes, but we all it still ties into the spirit realm on some level. Everything in this world most everything is a representation of something in the heavens. Even your body organs, your eyes, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your feet, those different rooms, they kind of tie into something in the spirit realm. So anyways, Arthur was doing these experiments. He got these doctors and equipment, and they were doing the EKGs and all this type of stuff, hooking people up, wiring them up. And he would start ministering to them. And so I don't know the questions he was asking, the specifics, all that stuff, but I've heard him loosely talk about this. And so, but he's very methodical. And so when he felt that he was dealing with a particular entity that was either coming against the Father, coming against the Son, or the Holy Spirit, or against the kingdom, they would start ministering to these entities, and they would notice a change in the heart. If you look at the heart, I want to change this view here. So basically, this is my right atrium. So this would be the Father. That heart's actually here. There, and then it goes down into the right ventricle, which would be the Son. Then it goes into your lungs and whatever, and it comes out of here, I think, into the left atrium, which is the Holy Spirit. And then lastly, number 4, it goes into the kingdom, which is the left ventricle, and then I think it goes out through the aorta. And so he noticed that, again, when trying to focus on particular unclean spirits, a particular part of the heart would have activity and stuff like that. And so There's a lot more to that. I'm not going to get all into that right now, but it again just there's a lot of parts of our body that have representation in the spirit realm. It actually means something, and so I just think that's kind of interesting. And so our heart is very complex, and so I've had that same pastor I was just talking about. He told me one time that he had an unclean spirit come up and said, the heart is our favorite place to get into. Which, I can believe it. Okay. Anyways, going down. Or going to the next slide. Okay, so here we have a constellation. And so, which are made up of stars. And I'm trying to do a little more research on this. I know people have done this more than I have, but I'm trying to do my own, based on theirs somewhat. But we actually have stars. The Bible has quite a number of things to say about stars. They sung before the creation, of the world. We have Joseph's dream, telling his dad and brothers that, hey, Mom, Dad, you were planets, and all you brothers and siblings, you were stars, and you were bowing down to me. Abraham, your generations will be more numerous than the stars. So in the Bible, we're often represented as stars. And there's a reason for that, because again, everything's connected to one another. We actually have stars. We actually may even be stars. And so sometimes I'll hear some things, from other deliverance ministers, Dan Duvall, Bride Ministries, and others. And, I'll try things out. And have I focused the energy of my star on an unclean spirit and get results? Yes, I have. I don't do it often, but if I feel, that's the way that Yah, the Ruach HaKodesh, Holy Spirit wants me to move, well, then that's what I'm going to do. And so I have dealt with, some fallen angels that, said they basically lived out, I don't know if it was like Orion or one of the ones that begins with a P, I forgot. Anyways, they were like, hey, we live out in that area. I'm like, okay. And I had just finished watching a broadcast by Dan Duvall. And so, a few weeks earlier, and I was like, oh, well, let me take some of the questions he asked and ask this fallen angel. And I was getting the same answers that he was getting. And so I was like, oh, for me, that was confirmation. But I've dealt with other fallen angels and stuff like that. And I believe I've dealt with a constellation before, which was massive, which made me feel this small. Me and the client were just overwhelmed by this thing. I'm not sure I handled it so well the first time around, because I was, yes, a bit fearful. The second time around, I think I handled a little bit better. I think I did deal with some type of entity in the stars. Because if you think, in the earth, we know about territorial beings. We're like, hey, there's demonic presence over the city of Atlanta or the southeast, or maybe it's over that, where the graveyard or something like that. And we're like, hey, you don't go messing with territorial beings unless Yah tells you to. Otherwise, you're going to get spanked. How much bigger do you think the celestial beings are? And so, anyways. But yeah, they're out there. And so, yes, run into them a little bit. And if you'll notice under that, I got the waves, which are representing the waters. Nowadays we have the UAPs or the UFOs or whatever, And they will say sometimes these videos like, hey, that spaceship went into the water. Well, sure, I can believe that, because a lot of these spaceships, if not, are demonic entities. Some of them, I believe, are created by our own emotions. That's a longer story. I'm not going to get into that. Actually ran into something like that not too long ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But in the Bible, it talks about in Revelations how the sea gave up all those that were in it, all the souls that were in it. And so, are there things in the sea, demonic entities way below, probably in the core of the earth? Probably yes. Even in one of my live streams, I spent the whole live stream talking about how Yah led me below the sea to go to a kingdom that was there where I had to free one of my own soul fragments. And I gave all the experience of how that worked, how that happened, and all that type of stuff. And so, I don't know what the name of that the live stream was. Anyways, but yes, so there's fragments of souls that are in the sea and elsewhere. All right, going to the next slide. So far, no questions. Okay, you guys are just very quiet. Okay, so here, what we have here is the little whirlpool-looking thing is basically a portal. It's a door. And so, as Yeshua said, hey, like, I am the door. He's he said, whoever, doesn't come through the door, is like a liar, a thief, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here. And so, in other words, there's other entry points. There are going to be other doors. There are going to be trap doors, hidden doors. There are going to be windows. Some of my clients have seen these things, windows that look malformed. I was like, oh yeah, enemy got into your house that way. And so, anyways, these portals can sometimes be guarded by what are called gatekeepers. There can be various types of gatekeepers. One, I got the little, whatever that guy is, demonic looking thing there. There can be, demons, unclean spirits that allow the traffic in and out. They will, the ones that they want to present or to have influence over the client, they may push that one into the client's purview to influence the client. Or it may not be an unclean spirit. It could be an actual person. It could be a witch, a warlock. It could be, a part of the person. It can be various spiritual entities that are guarding the gates. And so, just like we see in the Bible, you have gatekeepers. Guess what? Same thing in the spirit realm. And so, I ran into one a few weeks ago where it wasn't, like a whirlpool type of thing. Sometimes these can be bridges. They can be tunnels. I ran into a silver tunnel the other day where it took people to basically the underworld or hell. They didn't like it. They were like, yeah, it's not good where I go. And so it can take them to other dimensions. And so basically, sometimes when dealing with those, depending on who it is, what it is, I may try to work with it, or I may just try to cast it gone. Yeah. Anyways, so, but yeah, there are portals that can take parts of us to different places, and as I've explained before, some of the money live streams that I've done. Not just that, but other places, that we are basically energy when it comes down to it. And so I'm going to explain that in the next slide, actually. Let me go to the next slide. I'm looking at the clock here. I'm like, okay, I've gone for 50 minutes here, so I'm going to kind of not talk forever. So I'll start winding it down here in just a little bit. But I got a good few 10, 15 minutes in me, I believe. So, okay. So like in this picture here, again, you got a tunnel there. And so you'll see that little geometric shape. And so I believe what that is called is a Merkaba. And so Merkabas can be like, basically shapes. And sometimes the enemy can put you in like a Merkaba. I've had one soul fragment say it was like a triangle. And basically it would transport them to another dimension. And because we are energy, in questioning this thing, we found out that the Merkaba itself was powered by another soul fragment of this person, because the enemy was using the energy of their life force to power this thing. So even though the Yah gives us light, his energy, as I've explained before, the enemy, Satan, has basically hijacked the system. Satan and his minions, they can't go to Yah for energy and light anymore, so they basically steal it from us. And we basically get used as like poker chips. And so, energy. And so they use it to power different devices. They use it to trade with. We know reading Ezekiel in Revelation, where it talks about where Yah is coming against Satan for his trades, believing that to be soul trades. And so, anyways, so yes, we can get transported to different places. Yah's. So if you look at, again, these via science, they're like, well, we think that there might be 9, universes, or dimensions or whatever. And so, and to be honest, there's probably unlimited. And I'm kind of using the words, I believe you can have a lot of different realms within kingdoms. And a realm is basically an area where a particular entity has some type of rule. And so in the second heaven, we believe the first heaven to be earth, physical realm. Second heaven to be, where the, generally understood to be where the unclean spirits hang out. In that kingdom, there can be multiple realms, different areas where we get taken to. And then, again, generally understood that the third heaven is where Yah resides. There could be others, there could be more than that, but that's what we somewhat feel comfortable with at this point. Yeah, they're going to be pretty much unlimited. If you look at the universe, like there's no end. And so it's kind of the same with all these kingdoms, realms. Again, it's kind of like a dream world. In the spirit realm, if you kind of think it kind of exists because there's no physicality. And so, all the rules are, not all the rules, but many of the rules are a little bit different. So I'm going to go on to the next one here. So here we got a picture of Earth and, again, the waters. And I believe that there is an underworld that is in the Earth. The Bible has a number of things to say about this. And again, as I was talking about the UAPs, UFOs going into the waters, I believe I've had a number of unclean spirits here lately going, I don't want to go to the underworld. They're like, I don't like it there. And I'm kind of like, oh, well, you chose the wrong side, didn't you? Because that's where you're going to spend eternity. And so, and a lot of times they know that they're going to go there, but they're like, yep, but while we're free, we're going to cause as much damage as we can. It's like, all right, just know at some point in time, I may not know what's keeping you here now, but the Holy Spirit's going to let me know, and when he does, you're going to get the boot. And they're like, yep, but until then, we're wreaking havoc. It's like, dang it. All right. So, yes. So I don't have so much to say here. There's a lot more studying I'd like to do with that when the time permits. But I think I'm going to let it go with that. So, in Ephesians 3, verse 8, starting there, I just want to say this right quick. Bring up my cool graphic. Nope, not that one. The other cool graphic. That one. Okay. And so, I just want to end with Ephesians 3:8 here, which says, this is Paul speaking, "To me, though I am the very least of all saints, this grace was given to preach to the Gentiles the unsearchable riches of Christ, and to bring to light for everyone what is the plan of the mystery hidden for ages in Yah, who created all things, so that through the church the manifold wisdom of Yah might now be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly places." Because Yah wants to use us. We were created for dominion. And most people get focused on the earth and, birthday parties and football and doing whatever. And they've gotten distracted. And they've forgotten, again, they kind of don't pay attention to some of these verses in the Bible. And later on, they're going to wish they had. I'm not saying that they won't make it to heaven. I believe a lot of them will. But they might be the least in heaven. And I'm trying to invest long-term into eternal rewards. Because a 401k, an IRA, all that stuff, it's of limited value. Because that stuff's, that's what moth and rust can eat away. And so, anyways, but I believe that Yah wants to use us, those that are willing, because you were created for a purpose. You were created for a destiny. You were created to solve a problem. You were created to show the beauty, the wisdom of Yah to overcome problems. Maybe you're not on the front line like I am. Maybe you do it in your own way. Everyone doesn't necessarily have to be a sanctification deliverance minister dealing with demons, all the time. At some level, yes, we do, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the way that I do it. And so, we are all created to bless one another, but there's a lot of things that we've, as a church, as the people of Yah, have let the enemy get away with. So we got to deal with all that junk to get it cleared up so that his blessings can flow in us. But Yah wants to use us, those that have faith in him, those that trust him, those that want to help others. More than just reading a Bible verse. It's like, well, here's a Bible verse for you. Okay, great. And it is good, but there's also a lot more. Because again, it's about spirit and truth. And so I'm trying to bring both to the table, because I think many people have gone off one side of the road or the other. And that's what Walk with Yah will be focusing on. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we're done. I thank you for being here. If you have any comments, please, either now or later, leave them here. Feel free to subscribe to Walk with Yah. If you want to give donations, you can go to walkwithyah.com/donations. Shalom. And just remember, maybe your miracle could be next.